Hi.
Alright, hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. And today we are talking about Meet Me at the Lake by Carley Fortune. If you guys have been following me for a while now, at least the past year, you have probably heard me talk about Every Summer After at least one or a million times. I talk about it all the time because it was one of my absolute favorite books that I read in 2022. Honestly, one of my favorite books of all time. It was really one of those stories that you read it, when you finish it, you love it, but then like as time goes on, days, weeks, months, you always kind of go back to it and think of it and your love kind of grows for it more, like the more time that passes by, and you kind of find yourself like comparing other books to it. Like that is very much how this book was for me. One of my absolute favorites. I adored it. I feel like it's kind of a controversial book. You either absolutely love it, some people really don't love it for certain reasons or another, but I love it, I adore it, and all of that being said, it's pretty obvious that when I learned that Carley Fortune was going to be writing a second novel, that it was going to be releasing in 2023, I was very excited. I would even venture to say that this has been my most highly anticipated read of the entire year. I mean, I just adored Every Summer After. I adored Carley Fortune's writing style. I feel like I cannot believe that's her first novel, but then when I saw this the first time, this absolutely stunning cover. I mean, I love the cover of Every Summer After, but this one, I am not even a pink and purple girl, but something about it just gives me like the warm and fuzzies. It just feels so like nostalgic, so beautiful. And when I saw that it was gonna be kind of like a bit of a similar vibe to Every Summer After, I was definitely intrigued. It kind of had that like friends to lovers aspect to it, and it seemed like, you know, this couple was going to be reuniting present day. There's tension between them. Something happened in the past. It was going to be a, you know, flashing between timelines, all the things that I love and all the things that I especially adored about Every Summer After. So was very, very excited about it. And, you know, obviously at this point I have read it and I have a lot of things to say about it. A lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings. And as usual, I want to do my normal little spoiler-free synopsis where I give my basic thoughts and then I do want to dive a little bit deeper. So let's just get into it. So Meet Me at the Lake follows this girl named Fern, and she has grown up with this single mother that owns this lakeside sort of resort. Think Dirty Dancing, Kellerman's. It's really just like that. Honestly, all of her friends even call her baby, kind of make fun of her for it. But yeah, this is what she has grown up with. She's been kind of raised by the staff that owns this place, spending all of her summers working there. Like her friends have worked there. Her boyfriend actually that she ends up having for many years throughout her teenage years into college works there as well. Like her entire life is really centered around this resort, and it's her mom's baby, it's her mom's pride and joy, and there's always sort of been this expectation that Fern will take over the resort once she grows up. You know, her mom isn't hard on her about it. It's not like a you will do this and there's no choice, but it's just kind of never even been a conversation. It's just always a known thing that like this is the family business and this is a legacy and you're gonna take it on. And so we see Fern kind of like as a college student. She's gone off to school in Toronto. She's getting her business degree as she was kind of expected to do because she is going to be running this place. And we meet her when she's kind of working at a coffee shop. It's her senior year and time is winding down. She's about to graduate. She's about to have to go back to this resort and start working there full time, start her career. And she's really kind of conflicted about the whole thing. She loves the resort. She's proud of it. She's so proud of what her mom has done. She loves spending time there, but in her heart, she just really feels like she wants her own journey, her own path, her own dreams. Like she doesn't want to just take over what her mom has done. She is really into art and just lots of things. She has lots of passions and she's very creative, and so she just feels like she has other dreams of things that she wants to do. So we see Fern kind of going through this period very like by herself. She doesn't feel like she can talk to anyone about it because her friends and her family and her boyfriend all just expect her to be doing this. And basically she ends up crossing paths with this boy named Will. Like I said, she worked in a coffee shop. So Will actually comes into the coffee shop one day because he's been hired to paint a mural on the wall. He is an artist, and Fern and Will kind of like instantly hit it off. They have this very like bantery type of chemistry with each other. There's just something between them. There's like an instant connection. They kind of have this like weird soulmate connection, but like I've said, Fern has a boyfriend, Will is in a relationship, but the two of them end up kind of like, because he's there painting this mural, they end up having some time to talk and things kind of come out, and it kind of becomes obvious that Fern and him both kind of aren't super happy with their lives. They're kind of going through some like difficult times, and Fern doesn't really feel like she has anyone she can talk to about what she's going through, but Will is not somebody that she knows, so she kind of feels this comfortability between the two of them that she can kind of really speak her mind. Long story short, Fern kind of, you know, lets it known that she has to leave Toronto soon. She doesn't want to. She's in love with the city, and Will is originally from Toronto. He's kind of visiting for a little while. He's here to paint this mural, but, you know, he has another day, and they decide that they're gonna spend the rest of this day kind of like exploring Toronto. Like, he's gonna give her his ultimate tour, whatever. So they kind of have this like whirlwind 24 hours that they spend together. And, you know, we are kind of seeing this play out throughout the story, because now, present day, we do know nearly 10 years has gone by. Fern is now 32 years old, and her mother has just passed away in a very sudden, tragic accident. And we see that she is now working at this resort. And obviously we know that that is not what Fern ever planned to do. The story is kind of flashing between the present and the past, and so you're kind of like putting the pieces together, and you know from her past self that this is not what she wanted, but now present day, this is where she has ended up. And basically Will and Fern, like, we're seeing the 24 hours that they spent together play out throughout the chapters in this book. And we do know that obviously there was supposed to be something more that was going to happen between the two of them. The two of them made some sort of deal to basically meet up together. He was supposed to come and meet her at the lake later on after their initial 24-hour meeting, and Will never showed up. And now, present day, Fern is working at this resort, and she's really kind of frantic. She's grieving. Her mother has just passed away. This has all been kind of thrown into her lap. She's having to learn how to take it over, and she's working the check-in counter, and a very familiar face that she has not seen in 9 years, hasn't spoken to, checks in out of nowhere, and it happens to be Will. And we are seeing clearly from what we know about Will from the past that his future kind of hasn't gone the way that he wanted to either. He's now like working as a businessman. He used to be like a very creative, carefree artist, and now he's shown up at Fern's resort and he's like in a suit, like he's very like clean cut. And she learns that he's like a businessman now, he's a consultant, and that her mom had actually hired Will to help her out with the resort before she passed away. So that's what he's here to do. And so now we're kind of seeing Fern and Will reuniting present day, and you're kind of putting the pieces together of what happened in the past, what the two of them went through, talked about, what they promised to each other, and kind of where everything went wrong, and them having to deal with the repercussions of that now. So yeah, that's really the basic gist of this story. You can probably tell there's a lot of moving parts going on. It really is one of those types of books where, you know, you started out and you're a little bit confused. The first chapter is, you know, learning that Fern has taken this resort over, seeing Will show up. You can tell that she's pretty much furious to see him. He clearly wronged her somehow. She obviously has a lot of feelings and emotions towards this guy, and he hasn't spoken to her in 9 years, and she has no idea why. You know, you really have to like kind of put the puzzle pieces together, flashing from the past to the present, all of that. I just don't totally know how I feel about it. Honestly, it's like with Every Summer After, and I don't want to like overly compare the two. I get that they're separate books, but it's hard not to when like this was a book that I love so much, and they really, I mean, as you can tell by the branding, everything, like they were supposed to have similar vibes, right? Friends to lovers stories, past, present, all of that. I just kind of felt like this plot felt a little bit forced to me. There was something about it, like obviously a plot, a story, it's made up, it's meant to be made up, it's meant to be interesting, intriguing, entertaining, whatever. But with Every Summer After, it just felt like such a natural sort of story and flow, and it made so much sense to me. But with this story, there were just so many parts to it. Like I've said, you know, you're seeing Fern present day, you're also seeing her in the past. There's also like parts thrown in about, you know, her relationship with her mother who has passed away. You're seeing like journal entries from her mother. You have Will and his personal issues, and also like issues that he's dealing with his family. You also have Fern, who, like I said, had this boyfriend that she was dating for several years, grew up with her at this resort, worked with her at the resort. He still works with her now. So there's just a lot of things going on, and there were parts of this story that I absolutely adored. Like when I started it out, the first chapter, I was like, okay, I'm hooked. Who is this man? What's going on here? But it was one of those books where you feel like you've read, you know, you're like, surely I've read like 30, 50 pages and it's been like 10 pages. You know, it just felt kind of slow to me. It felt like the flow and the pacing just wasn't quite there. Like with this book, I just felt like every single chapter, when I finished a chapter, I was like, I have to go to the next. I have to know what happened. It just had me so on the edge of my seat, where this book, I just didn't feel that way. I feel like maybe because all of the past interactions were over the course of one day, so it kind of had to be spread out. You're seeing like all of these different chapters about just one day, so there's a lot of just like nitty-gritty details, conversations, like every bit of what they did for the entire day. So I think it was just a little harder for me to get hooked into the story. But I will say, I mean, there were parts of this book that had me like, oh my God. Like towards the middle, when things kind of started to come out, once feelings came out, once, you know, they let down their walls and things happened between the two of them, this book got like a little bit spicy. Like I don't remember Every Summer After having a lot of spice. Like I think there was a little bit, but this one I was like, hot damn, Carly. Like it wasn't like graphic, like dark romance Penelope Douglas level spice or anything like that, but she had me like, okay, I feel like you could write a very spicy book, Miss Fortune. Keep it in mind, because I was like a little bit shook by some of the things that happened in this book. But yeah, it was just hard. Like Carley Fortune, I feel like, is such a good writer. Like I really enjoy the way that she says things. I feel like she's very kind of like poetic about certain things, and just her dialogue, her kind of like banter, it just makes my heart explode. But overall, like I can't even really explain what it was. I just feel like there was a lot going on, and it just didn't feel like in the end that all of it got super fleshed out. I also felt like, you know, in these types of stories, you're waiting for the big reveal. You're trying to figure out what is it that went wrong between these two people. Like why did they go their separate ways? Why have they not talked in 9 years? And that's always the challenge. It's like, what is that gonna be? You're anticipating it the entire book. And when it was made, you know, obvious, whenever we learned what it was, I was just kind of like, really? Like it just felt, I don't know, it just felt like it was missing something for me. I know this is kind of like the whole kind of point of the story, and all of these kind of stories is, it's like a right person, wrong time type of thing, but just, I don't know, it was just silly. Like a lot of times these stories require miscommunication, and so many people hate the miscommunication trope. They're like, absolutely no miscommunication is allowed in a book. If it has miscommunication, 0 stars, I'm putting it down. And I'm not one of those people, because I think miscommunication is like one of the realest tropes there are. I mean, half of what goes wrong in relationships and friendships and anything in life is lack of communication, lack of honesty, people just not talking with one another. So I don't really mind miscommunication if it makes sense, but this was just one of those stories where I was like, really, in some ways, the stories aren't that similar or anything like that, but it kind of reminded me of November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Just the way that the two people were just like so obviously kind of like meant to be together, and you just kind of wanted to shake them at times, because it's like, I don't get it. I don't, you know, there were some very real things going on in their lives, but for the most part, it's like, just exchange a phone number, like look someone up on Facebook, message somebody. Like there's gotta be a way to get in contact, and they just aren't. Like it was just one of those where you're like, okay, to some extent, come on. Like y'all are just like self-sabotaging at this point. But yeah, like I said, there were parts that I really loved. I mean, it was definitely like a good kind of cozy summer novel. Like if you were going to the beach for the weekend and you were just laying out, relaxing, wanted kind of like an easy read, I feel like it would be a good book to bring. I feel like it's good for summer, but it just didn't wow me. It didn't like make me feel over the top excited, like I absolutely need to read this again. I just kind of finished it and was like, okay. I also just kind of felt like there was some stuff that was just kind of like rushed and thrown in there at the end that didn't feel like it really had much purpose. Like, I don't know. It just, for me, it's just hard because I can't not compare it to this book, which for me was like 5 stars, million stars out of 5 stars, obsessed with it, would read it time and time again, like it's going to be a comfort read for me. Where this, I don't even really like to give star ratings because I don't feel like it like fully encompasses what you feel about a book, but for me it's like, you know, it was like kind of a 3-star. It was just kind of like an average, which just made me super sad. But you know, that being said, I just feel like, I don't know if it was like Carley Fortune's choice or her editor's choice, whatever it is. I just feel like this book was super successful, so maybe she just tried to write a really similar type of story so that people that loved this would want to read her next book. And part of me just wishes that she would have maybe tried something a little bit different. Like I felt like it was trying to be similar to this, but it just like wasn't as good, you know? I just feel like she was trying too hard to like keep a brand and keep up with a certain style, and I would just be interested to see her kind of branch out, because I think she does do the past present timelines really well, but I don't know, this one just felt a little bit more forced, like I said. So yeah, I was honestly pretty disappointed in it. I haven't really seen other reviews of what people are saying, which surprised me. I felt like the day it came out I saw a bunch of people posting about getting it, but I haven't really otherwise seen people posting about it on my feed, and maybe that's just me. Maybe I just haven't happened to come across it. So yeah, I don't generally know what other people are feeling about it, but that's just the way I feel. I'm definitely not giving up on Carley Fortune. Like whatever she publishes next, I 1000% will be buying, will be reading, because I really love her writing style. Like I think she has this really unique voice to her that just really resonates with me, clicks with me. I really think she's so talented, and I love her style. But this one just wasn't a big winner for me. So yeah, that's how I feel. At this point, I am gonna get a little bit more into spoilers, so if you haven't read this book yet, I would exit, and if you choose to read it, do come back. But yeah, let's just get into it. So as we know, as we've said, the story starts out with Will showing up at the resort to stay there for a month because he had promised Fern's mother that he would kind of help her revamp, improve, whatever. For me, this part of the story was just never something that made a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, when we meet Will in the past, we know that he's an artist. Like I said, he's very like carefree. Like that's what he wants to pursue, that's what he loves, but we do learn over time that he had family issues and obligations that came up that kind of forced him into taking a more like business-like career. And I don't know if I'm just like overthinking it, but to me, like his career path, whatever, I just didn't think ever really made a whole lot of sense or was ever explained super well. Like it just didn't at all fit for me what Will was now doing present day. It just didn't seem like it fit his character. I also didn't really understand where all of his expertise sort of came from, and the way that it was just like, oh, I happened to attend a wedding, you know, a few years back, whatever, met your mom casually, nobody ever said anything about it, your mom didn't tell you, even though we come to find out that Fern had told her mom about Will. Like, for whatever reason, it was never discussed between Fern and her mother that Will was at the resort, and then he promises to help her with consulting and improving the resort, which again, I'm like, I don't really get his expertise in that, but okay. And so now he just shows up out of nowhere without like calling Fern, telling her, and he doesn't know that her mother has passed away, and now he's gonna stay here for a month to help her out. And I just never really felt like it made a whole lot of sense. Like we got like 1 or 2 little snippets of him being like, this is what you need to do, or this is what needs to change, or whatever, but it just felt like he just was kind of there for a month, and I was like, what is the point of him being here? And even at the end, I was like, so what did they change? Like what improved? What big business remodel did they do? I just felt like, again, I know that's not supposed to be that huge of a part of the story, but I was kind of just like very caught up on that, and I was just, because it was the reason he was there, and I was just like, I don't know, like I just didn't think it made a whole lot of sense, and I feel like the two of them could have reunited for different reasons. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me personally. And then, I mean, aside from that, right, seeing Fern and Will in the past, their day together was very cute. I mean, they, like I kind of said, had an initial meeting that didn't go off super well because Fern called his art basic, but after that, the two kind of like hit it off, had this instant sort of like weird soulmate-like chemistry with each other as they spent this whole day. Like they just got closer and closer, and it was really nice the way that Fern was able to open up to him, because again, he wasn't someone that she knew and she felt like she could talk to him. Like I loved all of that, but I just feel like some of those past scenes were just a lot of fluff, a lot of kind of nothing, of conversations that just didn't feel super relevant. I didn't really feel like until they got to the place where they were seeing that band, and you know, it kind of came out that Fern has had a boyfriend this whole time, even though she didn't say anything to him about it. And you know, when they got back to her apartment, all of those scenes to me were so cute. I was obsessed with Will. I just loved him so much. I loved their kind of instant chemistry. I was rooting for them so hard. When they agreed, you know, when they wrote out their 1-year plan, that was something that really resonated with me. I'm definitely a person that tries to think way too far ahead, and the older I get, the more I realize that's just not realistic and not really possible to try to plan your life 5 to 10 years in advance. So whenever Will was like, we're gonna write a 1-year plan of all the things that we wanna do, and we're gonna meet in a year at your resort, and we're gonna, you know, see where we are in life and how it's been and whatever. I thought that whole aspect was so freaking cute and sweet, and just like gave me the warm and fuzzies. I loved that. I loved it so much. But you know, they were very much right person, wrong time. They were both in relationships. They were both kind of going through things. Like it was not the time for them to get into a relationship together. Also, they didn't live in the same place. Like it made sense to me that the two kind of went their separate ways. But you know, from there, we just know that like Will was supposed to meet her a year later, and he didn't. But then we find out later that he did show up, because he drew a whole ass picture of her, but he couldn't say hi to her because he was stressed out about his family. I don't know. It was a little bit silly and goofy to me, the whole, like, I get it that his you know, he was looking out for his sister had a new baby, he was like working hard to support them, but the whole thought of like him showing up at the lake, literally seeing her sitting there and just not saying anything to her, just like, there's no excuse that you couldn't have been like, if you're gonna go all the way there, there's no excuse for you to be like, I'm sorry, but I can't. Like, just, I don't know. To me, the whole like sister thing just didn't feel like, maybe it is a valid excuse. Maybe I'm just like hopeless romantic, figure it out, find a way, but I just didn't think that reason for him not reaching out to her ever again made a whole lot of sense to me. That's just how I personally feel about it. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I just felt like the book was really fluffy. Like I said, I liked those parts of the past, but everything kind of leading up to that, I felt like I was kind of like skimming those chapters, and I was like, what is happening here? And the whole aspect of Jamie, of Fern's boyfriend, I always kind of thought like something more was gonna come out of that. I just thought that their relationship was kind of like weird to me and a little bit pointless. I guess maybe the whole point of it was they were together, and that was the reason why her and Will kind of couldn't be together in the past. Like, I get that, but like present day, I don't know. I just didn't know where the story was gonna go. I really thought that she was gonna like give the resort to Jamie and take it over, because he obviously seemed to be way more in love with it than she was. But then there was the shift of, I don't know, I guess I was just kind of confused about why it seemed like she didn't want to have anything to do with the resort, but then all of a sudden she did. Like, I didn't ever really understand what else it was that she wanted to do. I don't know. I guess it was just supposed to be one of those stories about like, you don't know what you want in life and you're gonna figure it out and all of that. But just like all the story, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place with telling you this, but that's just how I felt about this book. I felt like the book was all over the place. Like all the journal entries from her mom, and talking about her dad and how she got pregnant and how her dad left her, and how the guy that works at the resort, I think his name's Peter, always had a thing for her mom, but it just never worked out between the two of them, and she always kind of secretly hoped that he was her father, but he wasn't. And then he still works there present day, and you know, she finds out that him and her mom kind of had a thing, which I thought was so obvious from the very early journal entries, but she didn't realize it till like the very end. And apparently they had a thing, but they never got married because her mom couldn't like open up her heart, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I don't know. I just felt like the end of the story, I will say, when Fern started like writing her own journal entries to her daughter, Like that was cute, but just like as a whole, aside from the few kind of scenes that I've mentioned of them in the past going to that music thing and hanging out at the apartment and him drawing her, and you know, when they finally like got together in the present, like all of those scenes had me like kicking and screaming. I thought Will, some of the things he said, the dialogue between them, I was just like melting on the floor, loved him, but just like overall the story to me just didn't really do it. I just felt like the plot was like just all over the place. Like it just felt kind of like forced, and was like, how many different elements can we add to this to make this story complicated and make this relationship between the two of them complicated? And I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt like I was trudging through it. It took me a full 2 weeks to read this book. Like I got it in the mail, I took it out immediately. I was so excited to read it, and I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like read half of this book tonight. And I only got through the first like 25 pages, and I was like, okay, I feel like I've read a lot, like I'll come back to it. And I just kept like picking it up, and I would read like a chapter at a time and maybe 2 chapters, and until it got to that middle section, there was never a part where I was just like, oh, I need to like devour this book. Like I kind of read the whole kind of middle section in one sitting because that is where it kind of really picked up for me. But then after that, I just like, I don't know. As you can tell, I just like didn't love it. Like I think it's like, it's not like I would say don't read it. I think, like I said, it's a good, you know, general summer read. Like you'll probably enjoy it, but it just wasn't anything revolutionary for me, which, as I've said a million times, this was. So that's all. That's what I have to say. I just wanted to share my thoughts with you guys because I've literally hyped up this book all year. I've been posting it on my stories every single time Carley Fortune has shared anything about it. I've put it on my Instagram story, like screaming about it. I've talked about it on here. I just felt like it would be wrong to not give you guys my thoughts. And as always, I'm just here to be honest. Not every review is going to be like 5-star, butterflies, rainbows, greatest thing I've ever read. Sometimes things are just like not gonna totally do it for you, and that's how I felt with this one. But yeah, guys, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you read Meet Me at the Lake, let me know what you thought down below. Like I said, I know Every Summer After is kind of like a controversial book. You either love it or you hate it, so I understand if it's not for you. If you want to tell me about that as well. But yeah, guys, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.